Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Hardline. This one, I'm going to chat about Nate Diaz a bit. Obviously, he had a lengthy interview with ARIEL HELWANI the other day, and he mentioned a few interesting things. Kind of set the record straight on a few things. The fact that he's wanting to fight at 170, the fact he's only wanting to fight winners, which I liked, and his whole self perspective of the fact that he already owns the lightweight division and all that. So just daydreaming for a moment, talking about fights. Obviously, he mentioned Dan Hooker as a potential opponent, Charles Oliveira and Dustin Poirier, but all of those guys would need to come up to 170 to fight him. I actually don't think that would be a bad move for Dan Hooker. I actually think Nate would do him a favor right now by getting him back out there and maybe fighting him at 170 or even I keep talking about 162. Nate mentioned 165. I mean, as you know, I think a weight class right in the middle makes more sense. But certainly it'd be a good fight for Dan Hooker if he does want to stay active. If he wants to take a bit of time off, obviously that would make sense. But it's a big opportunity having Nate Diaz mention your name. So that's a good fight for Dan Hooker for sure. I'm upset that he didn't mention the likes of Paul Felder or RDA. I think they'd also be very interesting fights, but obviously, Nate's all about the superstardom and he wants a scrap. I mean, he's going to get that from Paul Felder. So I think that would be an absolutely great fight. And I also know that Felder's not coming out of MMA retirement for anything other than a big fight. Poirier at 170 would make sense, but I'm sure he's going to hang on for the McGregor trilogy because, I mean, what was it? He made more in the McGregor fight than he did in his previous 3 fights before that. It's just got money written all over it. He'd run that back every weekend if he could, I'm sure. And at 170, I mean, Nate said there aren't any interesting fights at 170, but I disagree. I think there's a couple of fighters up here that would be really, really interesting. First of all, Wonder Boy. I mean, he's ranked number 5. He's probably the highest ranked of all the guys I would like to see him fight. I think Nate against Colby Covington would be absolutely fascinating as far as trash talk goes. I'm not really interested in seeing a rematch with Masvidal. I've watched that fight back a couple of times and I just kind of felt like Masvidal was toying with him a little bit. I don't think it was a difficult fight for Masvidal. I think he might pose a few problems for Wonder Boy in the fact that he's unpredictable in the way that he moves and he primarily wants to box as opposed to kickbox. So I think Nate would be an interesting one for Thompson. The ones that stand out to me though is first of all Chiesa. He's on a streak at the moment. He's relatively new to this division. I know Nate's not going to do anything for his ranking, but for his notoriety in the division and what opportunities it creates for him as a superstar. I think that's a great fight for Chiesa, and I think stylistically it's good as well. 2 tall, rangy guys that like to tangle on the floor. Both can strike, but are quite unorthodox. And then the other one I'll throw out there is Tyron Woodley. The reason I think that would be interesting is because they are opposite ends of the spectrum as far as the way that they approach the fight. Woodley's a low output, high power kind of fighter with good wrestling and good control from the top position. Also a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, so he's going to be wise to what Nate's trying to do. But Nate with durability, high level pressure, the lack of concern about going to the floor, so that immediately takes one threat off the table for Tyron Woodley. When Tyron would stand in front of most people, there's the threat of the fast knockout or the threat of the double leg. Nate would probably drift away from that overhand and pull guard, and I just think that'd be a very interesting one between two guys. Obviously Tyron's late 30s now. It's unlikely that he's going to climb his way back to a belt. So I think a fight like Nate would be a fascinating one, and would get him that that stardom fight that he is longing for, that he's been talking about for a while. So as far as Nate coming back, I mean he says he wants to be busy, and I think the busier Nate is, the better, because he's not getting any younger. What is he now? He's 35. I mean, even if he's competing hard for the next 3 years, we're probably going to at most get another 9 or 12 fights out of him, probably less. But I just think he's such an interesting person in this division, just because of the way that he fights and he's unquestionable mentality. He was talking in the interview about the fact that he's never been stopped, and it's a bit of a delusional mentality, but it kind of serves you well in the sport of mixed martial arts. They're my picks for him. Obviously, the ones that he called out, Poirier and Oliveira. Although I don't think either of them, there's much value in them going up to 170 to face him, especially not Oliveira right now. He wants the belt and he should keep his sights on the belt. I think Tony Ferguson would be a good one, but from what it sounds like, he would need another win. And Dan Hooker, definitely, if he can get that fight, I would get that fight at 170 or whatever weight class. And then welterweight, Wonderboy, Michael Chiesa, or Tyron Woodley are all the ones that I would want to see. I think Covington would be great, but I think Covington would probably maul him. But anyway, lots of interesting fights. Let's hope we see Nate Diaz back in the octagon soon.